Hello, you're watching Shalom World News. I'm Dana Villa from Chicago, USA. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake has knocked down multiple buildings in southeast Turkey and northern Syria, killing at least 284 in Turkey, while 237 people died in Syria. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, Cyprus and Lebanon were also affected by the tremor. Statements from officials in Turkey and Syria put the death toll at 600. Rescuers are racing to save people trapped beneath the rubble after hundreds of buildings collapsed in both countries. Turkey declared a state of emergency and urges people not to use their mobile phones to allow rescuers to coordinate. The earthquake struck in the early hours of Monday, February 6th, and dozens of aftershocks have been felt in the hours since. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the president of Turkey, tweeted that search and rescue personnel were immediately dispatched to the earthquake-affected regions. Pope Francis has made an effort over the past 6 days to convey a message of solace and hope to the people of South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo, marking the conclusion of his 6-day Apostolic Journey. The Holy Father called for an end to all forms of violence in the two countries. He did this by showing his closeness to the people he was addressing. Huge crowds attended his public masses. In the capital of the DR Congo, Kinshasa, nearly 1 million people celebrated with him, and in the capital of South Sudan, Juba, some 100,000 faithful joined him, representing about a fifth of the city's population. His words in South Sudan summed up his entire visit. With the reassurance that Jesus knows and loves each of us personally, Pope Francis called on the faithful of South Sudan to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world during his Mass in Juba. As the papal plane took off from Juba to Rome, Archbishop Stephen Ameo Martin Mula said that Pope Francis has left a message of hope and a call for the people to remain together and strive toward peace. As per tradition, Pope Francis visited the Basilica of St. Mary Major upon his return to Rome and prayed before the icon of the Blessed Virgin in thanksgiving for his apostolic journey. Pope Francis remarked on Sunday while flying back from South Sudan that Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI always stood by his side and encouraged him. In an hour-long press conference, the Holy Father said that he could talk to Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI about anything, including changing his opinion. Benedict XVI was not a bitter man, Pope Francis emphasized. The Holy Father made the remarks while on board the papal aircraft traveling from Juba to Rome. The Pope's Anglican counterpart, Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, and the moderator of the Church of Scotland, Ian Greenshields, both were also present at the in-flight press conference. During the press conference, he revealed his intention to visit India next year. While speaking to journalists about his future journey plans, he said, "On September 29, I will go to Marseille." People said that Pope Francis also revealed his desire to visit Portugal's capital, Lisbon, this year, where he will host the World Youth Day. Meanwhile, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, shared his thoughts about the ecumenical pilgrimage of peace, hoping that this trip reminds people that our pilgrimage together is a sign for the world that it is normal for the Church to work as one. Salva Kiir Mayardit, the president of South Sudan, pardoned 36 people on death row and 35 people who had not paid fines or compensation in a proclamation broadcast on the state-run South Sudan Broadcasting Corporation. He gave the order and directed the prison staff to carry it out. The head of the state did not explain the pardon, but this comes after he met with Pope Francis, Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby, and moderator of the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church of Scotland, Reverend Ian Greenshields, earlier in the day at the beginning of their ecumenical pilgrimage of peace in South Sudan. The three religious heads had appealed to the political leaders they met in Juba on Friday, February 3rd, to continue down the path of peace and reconciliation and to make efforts to give the people hope for a future where human rights are protected by the rule and the implementation of the law. The U.S. Senate has sponsored legislation that would strengthen and make permanent the existing provisions intended to forbid the federal government from paying abortions abroad through foreign aid. The American Values Act would strengthen current restrictions against foreign funding for abortions. It would particularly outlaw help for abortion as a family planning strategy and forbid the use of aid funds to promote or coerce abortions or for forced sterilization. The law would also establish a permanent ban on the payment of abortions using Peace Corps funds. The bill's main proponent, Republican Senator from Idaho, Jim Risch, said in a statement that tax dollars should never be used to perform or promote abortion services in the United States or abroad. Daniel Ortega's dictatorship in Nicaragua sentenced Catholic priest Oscar Danilo Benavides Davila to 10 years in prison for allegedly conspiring against the government and spreading false information. The judgment states that the priest received a 5-year term for propagating false news and an additional 5 for undermining national integrity following a trial marred by irregularities. He was slapped a fine of 49,917 Cordobas, or roughly $1,350 US. Known for his criticism of the dictatorship, 50-year-old Benavides had been in detention since August 14, 2022, when he was taken into custody after attending Mass at the Concepcion de Mara Chapel in the Diocese of Ciuna. On January 16, 2023, he had been found guilty and the prosecution had requested an 8-year sentence against him. The punishment was eventually lengthened. Authorities in Nigeria disregarded warnings that thousands of cattlemen were entering the state of Benue, and as a result, sources claim that suspected herdsmen assaulted 2 communities and killed 12 Christians. The herdsmen attacked the villages of Ikembe and Mbagwe and Kwande County last Saturday, February 4th, inflicting killings, damaging homes, farms, and harvests. According to the 2023 World Watch List report from Open Doors, Nigeria had the highest number of Christians murdered worldwide in 2022. It has also had the most houses and businesses targeted for religious reasons, with 4,726 Christians kidnapped, sexually harassed, raped, forced into marriage, or physically or mentally mistreated. Nigeria had the second highest number of church attacks and internally displaced persons, similar to the previous year. Nigeria also rose from number 7 to the previous year to number 6 on 2023 World Watch List of the nations where it is hardest to be a Christian, which is its highest placement ever. In response to the wave of forest fires that have ravaged the country's center and south, Caritas Chile began its nationwide Let's Face This Calamity Together campaign on Saturday, February 4th. Caritas Chile's statement said, quote, "We invite you to contribute and widely promote this campaign, which adds to the diocesan initiatives to face together this catastrophe that requires the commitment of all," end quote. Interior Minister Carolina Toja announced that 22 persons had died as a result of the fires, while 16 were reported to be in critical condition. There are also 554 injuries and 1,500 people who are staying in shelters. Fires have burned over 40,000 hectares of land. La Araucana, Doble, and Bayobo are most severely damaged. Because of this, the government proclaimed a state of constitutional emergency in 2 areas, Bayobo and Doble, during which the army will take the necessary actions to bring back things to normal. The government has also sought assistance from neighboring countries. General Pervez Musharraf, the former leader of Pakistan who overthrew the government in a coup in 1999, passed away at the age of 79. The general, who served as the president from 2001 and 2008, died in Dubai following a protracted illness. He was on the front lines of the conflict between militant Islamists and the West after surviving many murder attempts. After 9/11, he had backed the U.S. war on terror despite domestic resistance. He lost the elections in 2008, and 6 months later, he departed the country. He tried to run for office again in 2013 but was detained and prevented from doing so. Musharraf had been living in exile ever since he traveled to Dubai in 2016 for medical care. The former president died in a hospital on Sunday morning. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif also expressed his condolences, as did the country's military leaders. May the departed soul rest in peace. 6 Hong Kongers, including Cardinal Joseph Zen and imprisoned Catholic media mogul Jimmy Lai, have been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for their contributions to the cause of human rights. The nominations were made by a bipartisan congressional group led by Republican Representative Chris Smith from New Jersey. Jimmy Lai, Cardinal Joseph Zen, Tony Chow Hang Tung, Gwyneth Haw, Lee Chong-yan, and Joshua Wong were nominated because they were ardent champions of Hong Kong's autonomy, human rights, and the rule of law as guaranteed under the Sino-British Declaration and International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, according to the U.S. Congressional Executive Commission on China's press release. All the candidates have been active in the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong, particularly since 2019, when widespread demonstrations against the oppressive Chinese government broke out there. Hong Kong is a special administrative province of China. Tens of thousands of convicts, many of whom were involved in anti-government demonstrations, have been pardoned by Iran's supreme leader. State media reports the pardons by Ayatollah Ali Khamenei came with conditions. The pardons come on the eve of the anniversary of the Islamic Revolution in 1979. Following the death in detention of a woman held in Iran's morality police, protests broke out last September. Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old Kurdish woman, was detained for reportedly disobeying Iran's rigorous dress code for women by incorrectly wearing her hijab or headscarf. According to human rights organizations, more than 500 protesters have died, including 70 minors, and close to 20,000 have been detained. Since the first of the hangings, protests have significantly decreased across the nation. Under Article 110 of the Iranian Constitution, the country's supreme leader has the authority to issue pardons at the recommendation of the judiciary. At least 100 persons in jail, according to the Oslo-based organization Iran Human Rights, are being held on death row. Pakistan has restricted Wikipedia because it contains blasphemous content. Wikipedia allegedly disregarded the Pakistan Telecommunication Authority's PTA ultimatum after being given a 48-hour deadline to remove some content, the free online encyclopedia announced on Saturday. According to the Wikimedia Foundation, Pakistanis will not be able to access the largest free knowledge resource as a result of the restriction. Blasphemy is a highly sensitive issue in Pakistan. Other platforms, including Tinder, Facebook, and YouTube, were previously blocked in the Muslim-majority country. Free speech campaigners have raised concerns over the move, saying there seemed to be a concerted effort to exert greater control over content on the internet. The Wikimedia Foundation said if the ban continued, it would deprive people access to Pakistan's knowledge of history and culture. The main purpose is to silence any dissent, said a digital rights activist. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us tomorrow. In the meantime, you can visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.